Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another big weather report coming your way. We've got a lot of rainfall now inbound for the eastern coast of Australia, especially into the northeastern corner of New South Wales, where up to 300 millimetres is possible over the next 10 days. We're also going to be talking about up to 150 millimetres for far north Queensland between Thursday and Saturday, so a detailed forecast for that location too. Central Australia is expecting a huge swathe of rainfall to expand across them this weekend, with up to 100 millimetres possible over some of the most arid communities in Australia. We're also going to have to talk about the cold snap that's currently inundating Victoria, New South Wales and Tasmania with freezing cold temperatures, and a big cold front is on the way to Western Australia as well, where a lot of rainfall is also possible there. It's all happening around Australia, so if you are brand new here, then please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. We're going to start things off over in Queensland. Currently, they've got a nice band of rainfall streaming in over there today, and it's providing some moderate to heavy falls in one or two locations. In fact, some places have already picked over 30 millimetres overnight, with a little bit more rainfall expected as well from this light to moderate stuff, extending between Longreach across to Bundaberg, Gladstone, Gympie, and the remainder of the Sunshine Coast. Some showers also streaming ashore on the New South Wales coastline. They're moderate to heavy as well, nothing too crazy happening around there. It's just going to be this rainfall streaming in ashore on the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast today that has a few heads turned in the weather world. We're not talking about any major rainfall accumulations. It's certainly nothing above 50 millimetres. I don't foresee being a chance here. But over the next couple of days, we could be looking at a couple of big accumulations across the northeastern New South Wales coastline. The majority of this rainfall, however, clearing out throughout the course of today, and in the wake of it, just those showers extending across the northeastern New South Wales coastline, the southeastern Queensland coastline. There'll be thunderstorms embedded in them as well, but we're not talking about very heavy rainfall here. In fact, it's only going to be about 10 millimetres an hour at its heaviest, really, so really nothing crazy to be writing home about, and rainfall accumulations over the next 24 hours aren't going to be that high. Up here around Gladstone and Bundaberg and over towards Emerald and Dingo, the rainfall has for the most part already fallen, but still an extra 30 millimetres is possible throughout the course of today. The Sunshine Coast expecting an extra 20 millimetres as well, so be watching out for that. Fraser Island also expecting another 20 millimetres to fall, and we're looking out for some isolated heavy accumulations around the Brisbane and the Gold Coast area. Coomera itself expecting about 15 millimetres, the Gold Coast a little bit lighter, 10 millimetres, and some of the islands offshore from Brisbane could be in the firing line for up to 30 millimetres of rainfall. The accumulations flare up a little bit over the next 3 days as a result of the onshore flow that's going to be providing those light to moderate and at times heavy showers. As far south as Taree in New South Wales, we're looking at up to 50 to 70 millimetres offshore. Coffs Harbour expecting a healthy 100 millimetres of rainfall, and also some accumulations above 70 or 80 millimetres offshore from Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Once again, the rainfall really struggling to get itself ashore, and it's going to be those coastal suburbs that get the worst of the rainfall, and then the inland suburbs that get next to nothing. As far inland as to warmer, the rainfall will be very hit and miss. Only a couple of millimetres expected out there, and some of the inner Brisbane suburbs as well, also not expecting too much rainfall. Ipswich, probably only a couple of millimetres there. Grafton as well, which is not too far inland from the New South Wales coastline, only a millimetre expected there. So it really does tell you that this rainfall is going to be coastal based, but once again, heavy showers getting themselves over the shore and into the mountainous valleys around here could result in some big accumulations and possibly some flash flooding in one or two locations. We're going to have to keep a close eye on things up in the northeastern corner of New South Wales and southeastern parts of Queensland. It's reciprocated amongst the other forecast models as well. The GFS and the Axis G3 neck and neck in terms of what accumulations are coming through. So it really does look like we've got a high degree of certainty on this forecast here, and I've got no reason to doubt the forecast models either. They've been saying this for the past week, and here it is today. We'll have to keep an eye on things, though. Tomorrow I'll give you a detailed update on what's actually happening in regards to those heavy showers, but we can't really be predicting the exact whereabouts of those heavy showers up to 24 hours in advance, unfortunately. While we're on the topic of Queensland and northeastern New South Wales, so let's slide things up to far north Queensland. There is a little bit of heavy rainfall expected up there. It's unseasonable, but still they can get rainfall year round. It looks like it's going to be a fine day for the most part up in far north Queensland, especially around Cairns into the Daintree and the Cassowary Coast. We're expecting a fine day with just a few clouds around here and there. Those rain showers non-existent right now. It's going to be at around Thursday afternoon when we see this onshore flow powered by this trough that's going to be situated in the Coral Sea over the Great Barrier Reef. That's going to funnel a little bit of rain and some heavy showers ashore, and through Friday and then into Saturday we're expecting consistent moderate to heavy rainfall to continue. This will also continue into Sunday when the showers will certainly be easing off, and then it looks like dry conditions will return later this weekend and into early next week, and they'll be here to stay from then on. But just throughout the course of Friday, I mean, looking at 5-day rainfall accumulations up here, we could be talking at up to 150 or even more millimetres, 170 millimetres or so. Friday, I would not be surprised if we saw a couple of red dots up here in this part of far north Queensland, outside of Innisfail, especially around Belen and Kerr, and some of the more mountainous areas around Atherton and Raven. So I would not be surprised if we saw more than 100 millimetres fall on just Friday alone. Saturday, we could also be seeing around 50 or 60 millimetres, but the rainfall should be easing off by Sunday. Cairns expecting only 20 millimetres or so, but up around Port Douglas and the Daintree rainforest area, a further 80 or 90 millimetres expected up there. Ingham, or just outside of Ingham, expecting 100. Tully also expecting close to 100. Innisfail about 50. So some very good rainfall is expected up in far north Queensland, and this is just a heads up. It's a very isolated pocket. The Bureau of Meteorology isn't talking about it right now, but it's just a heads up that some heavy rainfall is inbound in this part of far north Queensland, and in a place where soil moisture values are, they're not too far below average, but they're in some pockets well above average still. This is a little bit of a cause for concern in regards to some flooding, and you can see by this weekend soil moisture values will be well above the average, about twice as wet as normal, and in some places up to 3 times as wet as normal, and that is a big concern. Any further rainfall on top of this within 2 weeks after this little rainfall event that's coming through this weekend, it could be a cause of concern in terms of flooding. This event as well has me concerned for a little bit of flash flooding and also some riverine flooding. So yeah, just stay safe if you are up in far north Queensland, because this is quite a bit of rainfall to be coming through at this time of the year. And as you can see on the Access G3 model, it is reciprocated between the forecast models. 90 millimetres expected. The GFS calling for a lot less rainfall, but still a good amount of rainfall here, and that is because of their model resolution. It's just not as powerful of a forecast model to be able to crank out the detail that the ECMWF and the Access G3 model can, and that is why we get much lower accumulations on the GFS forecast. But you can still see here up to 100 millimetres expected between the Access G3. The ECMWF definitely being the more bullish model, but again, the worst case scenario up here is 150 millimetres. Just stay safe on those roads and stay safe around areas that are prone to flooding, because a little bit of rainfall looks like it is inbound. Central Australia has been a cause for concern as well in terms of rainfall over the past week. We're going to be seeing a lot of rainfall fall across Central Australia, South Australia, and into New South Wales and Queensland as well. And it's all going to be starting up from a trough at some time this Thursday. You can see the trough here on the synoptic chart extending through Queensland and into South Australia. And from Thursday night into early Friday morning, we're going to be seeing isolated heavy thunder showers fire up along this trough line. And when I say isolated, I mean very isolated. They're going to be few and far between. So rainfall on Friday is going to be very unpredictable. By Saturday, the rainfall should become a little bit more concentrated and easily predictable. We're going to be seeing these heavy showers fire up even more across Queensland, South Australia, the Northern Territory, and even into the northwestern part of New South Wales. We'll be seeing some heavier showers fire up there. And then as this low pressure system connects to this trough, we're going to be seeing this big rain swathe start to take hold in the southern parts of South Australia around Ceduna and Streaky Bay. We're also going to be seeing this rain swathe extend over the northeastern corner of South Australia, into the northwestern parts of the Northern Territory and New South Wales and the southwestern parts of Queensland. This heavy, more moderate to heavy rainfall will continue from Sunday morning through to about Monday morning, when it should certainly start to break up and ease off significantly. The low pressure system continuing to fire out showers through Tuesday as the system collides with the trough extending across the eastern states coastline, but the forecast beyond Monday and Tuesday becomes very uncertain, so I'll be making little comment on it. However, this weekend a lot of rainfall is expected over the next 10 days. I'm going to start off with South Australia first. Along the Eyre Peninsula, there will be places that pick up to 50 millimetres. Port Lincoln, however, only expecting 10 millimetres. Ceduna expecting a healthy 25. Roxby Downs expecting up to 40 millimetres. The opal mining communities around Minterby, Coober Pedy and Roxby Downs expecting between 10 and 50 millimetres as well. Moomba expecting a good amount of rainfall. Historically, the driest part of Australia in this part of South Australia, expecting nearly a year's worth of rainfall to fall. But as you can see here on the rainfall forecast, it's pretty patchy, and as such the rainfall is going to be very hit and miss in this part of South Australia. Where the rainfall won't be hit and miss is in Queensland, especially as you get further towards the New South Wales border and further towards the east. The rainfall will be a lot more predictable and also significantly heavier, and considering you're expecting a day or even a day and a half of light to moderate rainfall, it's going to add up to about 50 millimetres, and this is soaking rainfall. This is perfect for farmers and pastoral communities out here in this part of Queensland. this is not rainfall that is going to be flooding the rivers unless you do get some heavy thunderstorms out here, but they'll be more concentrated towards the west. This is soaking rainfall where it will soak into the ground nice and slowly, and it's just perfect for all forms of agricultural and grazing. So this is some absolutely beautiful rainfall that is on the forecast, and I'm very, very glad to see it, that's for sure. Some very heavy rainfall in the coastal parts of New South Wales and Queensland, in fact up to 200 millimetres possible, but that is once again later on in the forecast period. So we'll be touching on that in just a few days' time. But yeah, back to Queensland and New South Wales. Very good rainfall expected in the south of Queensland and the northern parts of New South Wales. In communities that haven't had too much rainfall this year already, you can see some drought-like conditions starting to extend over the parts of Queensland and even into South Australia and New South Wales as well. But if we were to fly this forward to Tuesday, you can see those drought conditions completely vanishing from New South Wales, Queensland, and the majority of them from South Australia as well. Just one or two locations expecting to be still in drought-like conditions. But taking a look at soil moisture values across this central part of Australia right now, they're very low, but they are still slightly above average, extending from a line of Alice Springs into New South Wales over Birdsville and Moomba, and that's because they have had above average rainfall this year so far. But you can see as we pull this forward to Monday or even Tuesday, you can see just this massive swathe of blue across New South Wales and Queensland, and even towards South Australia as well. Huge amounts of soil moisture values are expected, huge amounts of rainfall are expected, and this is going to create some pretty good runoff into the Lake Eyre catchment. So I would expect Lake Eyre to get another top up from the rainfall from the wet season. So that is some good news for communities around Lake Eyre and communities that do rely on the water flows from these rivers. They do desperately need a little bit of rainfall, and this is beautiful rainfall. This is top-up rainfall. I do see the chance of some of these thunderstorms, especially into the western parts of Queensland and into the northeastern parts of South Australia, being a little bit more problematic. These thunderstorms could be quite strong at times and provide this part of Australia with some very heavy rainfall, which isn't necessarily good news because it will just result in runoff. However, right now it doesn't look like a bad forecast for the majority of Queensland and New South Wales. And keep in mind, this is a very unpopulated part of Australia, so the amount of rainfall that they are going to be getting, it doesn't really affect many people. But to all the grey nomads and travellers through the central parts of Australia, just watch the road authorities head north or head south, because it looks like there's going to be some road closures, especially in the rural parts of Queensland and New South Wales. South Australia is a little bit of a wild card right now, as I have been saying. Down towards the southern parts of South Australia, between Sojourner and Roxby Downs, I do expect washouts, but again, just make sure you're checking with your local road authorities and the police. They will have the latest information available to you. Now, the next part of the video is the cold snap that's currently plaguing this part of Australia. New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania are brutally cold, minus 10.8 degrees Celsius in Leawanwi this morning, which is the coldest I have seen on a Bureau of Meteorology observation, or in the Bureau of Meteorology's observation network. It is bitterly cold, that's for sure, and about 6 degrees Celsius below the forecast minimum as well. Thankfully, a little bit of relief is expected over the coming couple of days, but not before tonight. Tonight's going to be another brutally cold night, temperatures dipping well below freezing by sundown tonight, and across all of Tasmania and into Victoria and New South Wales there will be temperatures approaching freezing or well below freezing in some places. These elevated communities of Tasmania are going to have offshore winds. It's going to be icy cold, that's for sure, tonight, powered by this high pressure system that's going to get itself situated over the top of Tasmania, and I expect another minus 10 degree night in Leawanwi tonight. Even though the Bureau of Meteorology forecast is calling for minus 7 or minus 6, I believe, I think it is going to be brutally cold there once again. Thredbo dipped to minus 8 degrees overnight as well. They're currently sitting at minus 5, I believe, so a much more pleasant start right now, minus 4 degrees right now, but still minus 8, absolutely brutally cold down there, and a lot of communities in Victoria also dipped close to freezing. They're expecting a freezing cold morning tomorrow as well, so frost is going to be widespread and it's going to be severe across Victoria, New South Wales, and even in towards South Australia as well. Big frost day expected in South Australia, all powered by another high pressure system over the top of South Australia. But this high pressure system over Tasmania, it's a pesky one. It's creating extremely low tides and some absolutely freezing conditions. And if I were to put the temperature observations back on again, I mean, these temperatures, they're not going to get above freezing for some of these locations. There are road warnings currently in effect for Tasmania and also in the elevated parts of New South Wales for icy road conditions, so make sure you're taking extreme care on those roads and only drive if you absolutely have to, because these black ice is a huge killer, and it's a big problem on Australian roads, especially in the winter times for inexperienced people that don't know how to drive on icy roads, because because, you don't get taught how to drive on icy roads in Australia because it is such a unique thing, but icy roads expected across Tasmania throughout the rest of the week. If we flick it back to the temperatures and bring it to Thursday, you can still see this high pressure system over the top of Tasmania, so another freezing cold morning expected Thursday morning. It'll be slightly warmer across Victoria and New South Wales, still very close to freezing for a lot of locations. Melbourne expecting 2 or 3 degrees in the morning, even into South Australia as well, very cold there. Friday morning should be a little bit more relief yet again, still very cold in Tasmania and pretty cold in Victoria and New South Wales, but conditions start to warm up a little bit ahead of some rainfall that's expected in South Australia and New South Wales. And then by the looks of things, by Saturday, the really cold air gets itself out of the agricultural community. Is still really cold in Victoria, but it mainly contracts to the mountainous areas in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. And this high pressure system, it really wants to stick around. Hey, it doesn't really weaken until early next week, and then the conditions do start to warm up just a little bit more. That's enough talk on the cold snap. If I've left anything unanswered, then please do leave it in the comment section down below. I look forward to responding to all of the comments throughout the course of today. We're also going to be talking about this powerful cold front that's expected to impact Western Australia. We're going to pull this forward back to this coming weekend, actually Saturday the 6th of July. You can see this big cold front that's expected to line itself up offshore from Western Australia, making its crossing at Sunday early morning. Not going to be too much rainfall in it, but it is going to be a very windy cold front, expecting wind gusts in excess of 80 kilometres an hour ahead of this cold front. And with the southwest capes and exposed coastal locations such as the Abrolhos Islands, expecting wind gusts in excess of 110 kilometres an hour. Some pretty high rainfall accumulations are also possible, especially around Denham, Shark Bay, Carnarvon and Coral Bay, up to 50 millimetres possible there as this cold front makes its passage through on Sunday. However, for the southwest area and the wheat belt into the south coastal regions, only expecting around 15 to 20 millimetres. Perth itself probably about 15 millimetres, and for the southwest capes 10 to 15 millimetres, and the south coast between 5 and 15 millimetres expected there. Another weak cold front making its passage through Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a cold morning Monday morning before those winds pick up again Monday evening and into early Tuesday morning, and another cold front makes its passage through. This one's going to be a bit more of a rainmaker for the southwest regions, especially around the southern parts of the Darling Ranges outside of Margaret River, Busselton, Collie and Bunbury, expecting some good accumulations there, but Perth mostly missing out on it. A big moisture band being pulled in as well from the north, and that will inundate communities around Kalbarri, Northampton, Geraldton and inland to the northern parts of the wheat belt, including Kalani and Perenjori, with a bit more rainfall up there, which is once again, just more woes for the road workers up there. They don't need any more rainfall, and some nice showers and storms coming through on Wednesday afternoon. They shouldn't be too heavy, and as we get towards Thursday, the 11th of July, much further into the future, you can still see this rain around Perth. It looks like we're moving into a bit of a winter, or a much more winter-based period, where we're going to be talking about some very heavy rainfall across the southwest area, so we're going to have to be watching this forecast very closely. Some good accumulations are also expected by this low-pressure area up in the north around Geraldton and Kalbarri. We're looking at up to 80 or 90 millimetres up there. Coral Bay expecting a healthy 70 millimetres. Again, it's just rainfall that they don't really need at this point, but they will take it. Around the northern parts of the wheat belt, between 30 and 50 millimetres, but the rest of the wheat belt not getting too much, only about 10 to 15 millimetres. The western parts of the wheat belt, however, expecting a good 30 to 40 millimetres, and around Katanning too, a very healthy 30 millimetres there. So that's some very good rainfall that they do much need. Perth itself only expecting 30 millimetres from all this weather stuff that's coming through, and then in the south around the start of the Darling Ranges outside of Bunbury, including Collie and Harvey, expecting up to 70 or 80 millimetres there, and pockets up towards 100 millimetres too, so we're going to have to keep an eye on things. It looks like it could get very wet down there just with the motion of these cold fronts. It is reciprocated amongst the other forecast models. The GFS is a very similar forecast in, and the Axis G3 also reasonably similar, so I do have a high degree of confidence in terms of the rainfall numbers here, but we're just going to have to wait and see and wait a couple more days for the details. I've just got a little special edition to end this video off. We're going to go all the way around the world to the Atlantic Ocean in the Caribbean Sea. This is a more major hurricane, Beryl. It's nearly a Category 5 system on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, with winds of 260 kilometres an hour, gusting to 310 kilometres an hour. This is massive. It would be one of the strongest cyclones ever to impact Australia by comparison, and it blew through the Windward Islands last night. Thankfully, it was weakening as it moved through there, but I said it on my other channel, Cyclone Cyclones Extra that this system was going to go ham in the Caribbean Sea, and it totally has. It's gone absolutely AWOL, and taking a look at it right now, it's one of the most beautiful hurricanes that I've seen in the Atlantic Basin, and it will get to Category 5 status. It's a monster system. But I just thought that was an interesting way to end off this video. It's not just Australia that's receiving some interesting weather right now, it's also the Atlantic Basin getting one of the strongest hurricanes of all time moving through that area. If you've got any questions on Major Hurricane Beryl as well, check out the second channel, Cyclones Extra. There's a link on the screen right now. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen. I could not run this show without them, and their support is greatly appreciated. That is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.